What up, party people? Here we are today talking about a new camera that we just got in. One that I am pretty excited to talk about. A camera who belongs in a system in which I usually almost give zero time of day to, but it is the new Lumix, Panasonic, S12. Full frame, 6K, open gate, banger. That I've been really impressed by. Now, this camera is actually pretty impressive, and if you want a long form video, personally, I would stop watching me and maybe go watch Gerald Undone for all the technical tests, or do CVP for their deep dive into this system. This video is really just gonna be about my opinion shooting with it, do some tests and show you some stuff and get the hell out of here so you can go about your day. So, what is the S12? Well, mirrorless camera, Lumix. This camera has an impressive amount of codecs in here. It's 6K that you can then super sample down to 4K and Cinema 4K. You can shoot ProRes, ProRes RAW, MOVs, MP4s. There's so many things this camera can do. It's almost too much. It's a little overwhelming trying to understand just what each of these codecs does. But then once you find the one you like, pretty much haven't changed it since I got it when it comes to shooting video. I personally prefer just the Cinema 4K that's super sampled down from 6K, 422 10-bit, and just ProRes 422 HQ. Now, ProRes RAW doesn't really work well with Resolve, and that's mostly what we use here, so we haven't done any conversions or any of that sort of stuff. But if you're in Premiere, or Apple Final Cut X, you can do some stuff in there as well. It really depends on your system you edit on, is gonna kind of dictate maybe how you shoot this camera, but ProRes RAW gets you 1.7 gigabits per second on the card, which is a CFB. So like that is a pretty ridiculous amount of data for that codec. So you're gonna chew through cards pretty quickly. Now, the cool thing about this camera is you can do the ARRI Log C3 license. The uncool thing about this is that they really don't look anything freaking alike. So if you have a mini LF and you want to shoot in Log C3 and then do a 709 conversion, if you do the same thing on both cameras and convert them the same, they do not match really at all. I feel like this is a bit saturated in greens and blues compared to the mini LF. But if you want to raise the saturation on one or desaturate this, you can get them to match very closely. It's just not really, if you're viewing on a monitor, I don't think they look similar once you put a viewing LUT, unless you made a LUT specifically for this in its Log C3 to kind of match the mini LF in its 709 output. Now, things that you're not going to get in that, while you might get color, there are special things happening in the OLPF of the mini LF that adds some softness and a little halation that you really don't get in this camera. So if you really wanted that airy look, you know, I still think you're gonna need to add like a 1/16 of some sort of filtration on your lens if you really wanna get a closer representation of getting the airy look in camera. Now, if you are willing to do that, this is an insane camera that does get you a lot of that look. And I really feel like this camera sits somewhere between the highest end mirrorless camera and something like a Pixis, you know, where this has a great amount of video capability, but it's still in a mirrorless format, which is small and compact, which is great. So that's my thoughts on the system kind of as a whole. Now, I do like the fact that this has a similar menu to, say, like the Mini LF or the Big 6 that came out for Sony, where you have your display. You know, you can go through here and dial in what you need it quick at a button. I love the EVF anymore. After having the A7C II, I will not even look at a mirrorless camera unless it has an EVF. Like on small jobs, you're inside, you're outside, you don't have a lot of support with you. being able to stabilize by looking through the viewfinder and steadying up the camera, not having light glare bouncing off a tiny little reflective screen. It's all I want, and I don't want a mirrorless camera without an EVF if you're gonna call it a cinema camera or have video functionality. So I appreciate that a lot. The other thing that's really great about this is just the IBIS that is in this camera is pretty ridiculous. You can walk around, pretty much do whatever you want, and the footage is great. Now, I really do think though, after seeing enough of this footage, that I don't really like it. If I'm gonna walk and I know my motion is gonna be very purposeful, I'm gonna turn it on. I think I just actually like the look of this sensor with it completely turned off and not really seeing as much of the sensor moving around when I'm kind of locked off and doing stuff. So I think using that to taste is gonna be up to you, but the nice thing is you have options, which is more than a lot of other camera systems, and it really does work well depending on your intended use in terms of what you're trying to get creatively out of it. So I do appreciate that. There's another strong win for this camera. Now it's L mount, so you can adapt pretty much anything to it. Downside, it's L mount, so there are just less lenses available in L mount that are autofocus. Now let's talk about autofocus because it has it, and it's actually probably the first implementation of autofocus on a Lumix camera that I actually would give any time of day to. It works well. It works well with an L mount lens. It works well with an L to EF adapter using Canon lenses, and the face tracking, facial recognition, all of that is surprisingly good for any of the amount of stuff I would use this for an autofocus camera. It may not be as intuitive when you're coming on and off of subjects in terms of when it is focusing or how kind of much you can dial in those settings as say a Sony, but I give this a healthy pass when it comes to very usable autofocus. And that to me is another win for this camera. So we talked about video, let's talk about stills. I went out, shot some stills, did my normal process where I go and run them through VSCO, and I'm just gonna post those right now. You can take a look at them, but overall, it's a stills camera with a raw format. I really feel like you can't go wrong. This camera's dynamic range boost in stills really just gives you a great looking image. And to be honest, what I've always wanted is a mini LF sensor in a mirrorless camera. And to me, this is a very close version of what I feel like I'm just taking stills with my mini LF. It's bulky, and if they made a smaller version of this camera that was a little more handheld carryable around town with, you know, more L mount lenses, I might want to take this on more photo stuff. Overall though, it's a great photo camera. Are there better photo cameras? Yes. If you don't have a crazy job doing photo, this is gonna be a totally good camera if you're trying to just have a camera that does both. If you're somebody doing social media stuff or doing whatever, family pictures, this is gonna be more than plenty and a really good camera. There's just other cameras that are probably gonna do stills better, but I love the look. I love how gradable it is. I'm just really a fan of the overall look from this camera and the grain structure you get just naturally right off the sensor. Okay, we're going back in the studio. Now we just went out on the street and we shot a series of things. We shot mini LF, the S12, and the Blackmagic Pixis. We're just gonna play a sequence completely without markings. We've graded them all. You tell me which one's which. And then we'll come back and we'll play it again with everything marked up. Okay, that was that. Could you tell? Were there enough differences? What do you think is which? Now we're gonna play the same sequence, but we'll label it, see if you have any surprises. Yep, just as I thought. It's pretty hard to tell them apart once they're graded. I think that's a nice thing about this. If you really did need a camera as a B cam to run with a mini LF for say, like you could throw this on a gimbal. You might need a little post work, but at least everything's gonna be in the same log format if you buy the license, and that to me is a pretty strong win for this because I feel like the other camera that matches the mini LF well is a Pixis, and it's just a little too large to give me lens flexibility on something like a Ronin RS4 or a similar sized gimbal without jumping up to like a Movi Pro or a Ronin 2. So I really think this is a great little camera for that. When you're talking about dynamic range, we're gonna spare you another long test, but this camera in dynamic range boost mode, has really great dynamic range, but sacrifice to that is going to be that you have a worse rolling shutter performance. So you can either choose higher dynamic range with a worse rolling shutter or go out of dynamic range boost mode, get a better rolling shutter, but a little bit less latitude. So you're doing an interview, hell, turn it on, do whatever you want, and that's fine. If you are moving around and about, need to be flexible, you've got an option, turn it off. Chances are, if you're outside in broad daylight anyway, you're probably not shooting a high dynamic range scene anyway, because everything's already brightly lit, blah, blah, blah. You will probably be fine just having the normal dynamic range and, get your rolling shutter performance back. So there is that. Now, the price of the camera, roughly $3,000, getting up there around the price of a base Pixis. But this is better for stills, has better autofocus, is more compact. In-body image stabilization. There's so many things about this that make it worth the price. But I am a little bit conflicted and I'm not quite sure we're gonna keep it. We bought it to keep. We did the review on it. There's just something about the image. I can't tell if it's the motion cadence or something else where, are there other cameras that do other little things better that are more specific to the job I would use them for? This camera is like just 90% good at everything. But I don't know if I would choose other cameras that are 98% good at the one thing I need it to be and choose those things for that job. And that's where your own work that you do really comes into the choice of buying this camera. If I only had one camera, I would absolutely take this over any Sony, Canon, Fuji, Nikon, whatever, it doesn't matter. This is a better hybrid camera. It is a great stills camera, maybe not as good at that. But for me personally, who shoots primarily video and little social bits, corporate stuff here in town, narrative, I think this fits me better than the other cameras, and I do like having a super sampled 6K image. I like being able to punch into Super 35 if I want and still be in 4K. There's just so many things I like about it. I just think I might need another couple weeks analyzing some footage, taking it out on a couple jobs to really see if we're gonna keep it. And that's really where I'm at with this camera. It is surprisingly good, and it feels weird to not know if I'm going to keep a surprisingly good camera. That is maybe a first for me on a camera system. So with that, we'll leave it there. Thanks for watching this video. If you like what we're doing, give us a like and a subscribe. If you're in Seattle, we do rentals. If you need gear, we also ship stuff. So, okay, so we did the whole video and then just realized there's just a lot more stuff to talk about, so we had to come back and really wrap up some things that I felt like were important to talk about since we didn't really cover them. So let's just get into that on this very semi-Lord of the Rings ending to this video. We're back for a second ending. So we're gonna talk about 3x2 open gate. Now this is a 10-bit 420 codec. A lot of people might say, 420, that kind of is a bummer. I don't know. After seeing it and seeing it with a log C3 profile, given that anymore, like so much of our work is going to social, I just don't know how much of a difference you're gonna see in that codec unless you really wanna get extreme with your grading. But honestly, I think it's more than fine. It was like kind of a surprise using that codec and actually like grading it. I didn't feel like I was really missing much, doing kind of like our typical grades we do on, client work or stuff we do here in the studio. So I don't know. Not that big of a deal, definitely not a deal breaker for me after seeing it and going out and kind of practically using it. I think it's actually better than I thought it was gonna be. Moving on to the next thing, this flip out screen is just maybe the best version of a screen on a mirrorless camera, and I feel like every camera manufacturer should do this, like without a doubt. So the fact that it goes in and out, swivels to the side, can go up and down, all on that thing is like just the best implementation of that. It's fantastic, and it is great in real use, and it doesn't feel cheap or like it's gonna break. It's just a really nice monitor hinge bracket on this camera. Now, moving on to overheating. It's a thing that people talk about. I don't know. We shot a bunch of stills out on a hot day, shot video, did some test interview rolls. Never overheated or gave us any warnings, but Pacific Northwest is a different vibe. But I mean, it's hot here. It was like an 80-degree week. So, I mean, Who's to say? It depends on what you're shooting, when you're shooting, how you're shooting, probably will dictate that. But for us, we didn't see any issues, so hard to report anything negative there. Okay, DR boost. So there's the dual circuit merging in this camera that's gonna give you a lot more latitude. That's why this camera is so great. But it's basically a function you can turn on and off, similar to how the C70 worked as well. But kind of the more dynamic range you're gonna get, the less performance you're gonna get from a rolling shutter aspect. So you can pick and choose. If you're doing interviews, you want some high dynamic range, you're doing stills, whatever, turn it on. If you are doing crazy fast motion, long lens stuff, handheld, turn it off. It's not like the dynamic range is bad without it, it's just extra good with it. So you get to make that call, and it's a good, useful tool to have, just like it was on the C70. So last final takeaway on this second ending we've got here is like, would I keep it? And after taking it out again and like really kind of shooting with it, I do think that we will keep it, but I think my biggest request to Lumix or Panasonic is just on a firmware update, make the codec selection menu completely different. Overhaul the UI on just that one thing, because it's overwhelming in a way that it's too many codecs to understand what all their limitations and use cases are. I don't know if there's an easier way to simplify it by, you choose your frame rate first and then it'll just tell you what available codecs are in that frame rate, instead of like several different pages of options based on MOV, ProRes RAW, not ProRes, long GOP, whatever, 10-bit, 8-bit, Cinema 4K, 5.9K, aspect ratios. Like, there's a lot of functionality, which is great, but it's built in a way that is just massively overwhelming and needs to be refined and simplified in a way that makes it a better user experience. And honestly, if you threw away half those codecs, I probably wouldn't be sad. And just kept like the worst and the best, or some version of 3 sets, and that's it. But that's my takeaway. It's really the only negative that I have about this camera at this point. It's really good. I think you'll like it if you want to take it out and test it out. But yeah, thanks for sticking around for the second half of this ending. And still, like and subscribe if you like what we're doing. We'll catch you on the next one.